Hi, my name is Yui. I'm happy to be a guide for you in this series. We aim to bring the knowledge of the Microsoft security products for you so that you can understand and apply these technical configurations for your real business. And in the previous video, we already went through the configurations to manage devices with Microsoft Endpoint Manager. And in this guide, you will learn how to manage and protect mobile and desktop applications with Microsoft Endpoint Manager. You will see how to add and assign different types of applications, create app protection policies, and distribute apps to your organization. This is the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center. Endpoint Manager is a unified endpoint management platform for keeping data secure on all your devices, and it is where you will define Microsoft Intune. And as an IT admin, you can use Microsoft Intune to manage the client apps and devices that your organization's workforce use. To get started, click or tap Apps. The app's workload provides links to common app information and functionality. Next, select All Apps. This is a list of all available apps in the organization. From this page, you can see the status of each app and whether each app is assigned. And before you can configure, assign, protect, or monitor apps, you must add them to Microsoft Intune. And to do this, select Add. Next, specify the app type. In this case, under Office 365, we will select Windows 10. This app type enables you to assign and install Office 365 apps to devices you manage that run Windows 10. Now that you've selected the app type, steps will guide you through configuring the app setting. And the first step is to add information about the app suite. This information will be used to identify the app suite in Intune and enable users to find it in the company portal. In this case, we will opt to show this feature app in the company portal, but leave the other default information as is. And the next step is to configure the app suite. Use the drop-down arrow to see the Office apps included in the app suite. And you can choose which Office apps to assign to devices. In this case, we will keep the default selection. Next, choose the Update channel, which determines how often Office apps are updated on devices. And to provide users with the newest features of Office as soon as they are available, we will select Monthly. Scroll down to review the rest of the configuration options. And the third step is to configure stop tabs for these applications. And you can use scope tags to determine who can see client app information in Intune. In this case, we won't add any scope tags. Next, let's configure the app assignments. And you can assign apps to users, devices with 3 types of assignments: required, available for enrolled devices, and uninstalled. In this case, we will make the Office 365 suite available for enrolled devices and assign to unselected groups. Let's search for a group to assign the Office 365 app suite to. Next, review and create the app suite details. You can scroll down to review the settings you configure for the app suite. So select Create to add the app to Intune. So the Office 365 for Windows 10 app is now created, and you can see its overview pane, which displays installation information for the app suite. Next, select App Protection Policies. App protection policies are rules that ensure an organization's data remains saved or contained in a managed app. A policy can be a rule that is enforced when the user attempts to access or move corporate data, or a set of actions that are prohibited or monitored when the user is inside the app. Select the drop-down arrow to create a policy. We will create the app protection policy for an Android mobile device. So first, fill the name and description for the policy. Next, let's select the apps to target with this policy. First, choose how you want to apply this policy to apps on different devices, and we will keep the default setting on target apps on all device types. Next, select public or custom app to target, and we will choose to manage a public app with this app protection policy. So, the apps listed here are supported partner and Microsoft apps that are commonly used with Microsoft Intune, and administrators can add additional approved apps from the Intune portal. So we will scroll down and select SL. And we also select a few additional apps to manage with this policy. Next, let's configure the app protection settings. So these settings determine how users interact with data in the apps. First, specify what apps can receive data from the apps with this policy. You can allow data transfer to all apps, no apps, or only other policy managed apps. We will select policy managed apps. Scroll to review the rest of the data protection settings. And to prevent apps from printing the organization's data, set the printing of data toggle switch to block. Next, let's configure the access requirements. So, users must meet access requirements to access the apps that are part of this policy. So you can scroll down to review the access requirement settings. And we will require the user to sign in with their work or school account. To do this, set the toggle switch to required. Next, let's look at the conditional launch settings. You can configure conditional launch settings to set sign-in security requirements for your app protection policy. So you can scroll down to review the settings. And we'll leave the setting as is. Next, let's configure the assignments for this policy. First, select a group to include in this policy. Search for the group and select it. Now let's review and create the policy. The policy was successfully created, and you can also create app protection policies for apps running on iOS devices. So the policy creation process is similar to the one we saw for Android. And in this case, we will move on. Let's see how to add an approved app from the Android store that can be managed with the policy we created. First, select Add. Next, select the Android Store app from the list of app types. Next, provide basic information about the app you want to manage, including a name, description, and publisher. In this example, we will use the Microsoft Outlook app. Next, paste the full URL of the app from Google Play Store. Next, select the minimum operating system version of Android you want to support. So in this case, scroll down and select Android 8.0. And you can also assign this app to a category. Categories enable you to sort apps and make them easier for users to find in the company portal. So select the drop-down arrow to select a category. Select productivity. You can also show this as a feature app in the company portal. So set the toggle switch to yes to make this a feature app. So we won't configure any scope tabs for this application. Next, let's configure the app assignments. So let's add this app to a group as a required assignment. This will automatically install the app to the user's devices if they are being managed by Intune. Search for the group and select it. So next, let's review and create the apps. Now let's see how you can add your custom line of business apps to Intune. Scroll down and select Line Business App as an app type. Next, select the application package file for the app you want to distribute. This can be any custom Line Business app. And for this sample, we will select the installer package file for the Microsoft.NET Compact Framework Redistributable. And some of the application settings are detected automatically when you select the file. You will need to fill in the remaining app information, such as the description and publisher. You can choose to install the app when a user signs in to the device or to push deployment to the device. And we will set the toggle switch to device. Continue to the next step. And we also want add an any customers for this app. And next, let's configure the app assignments. So let's add the apps to a group as a required assignment. Search for the group and select it. Now let's review and create the app. When the application raw file is created, the installer will also be uploaded to a storage location in your Azure account. Select Create to add the custom Line Business application. Now that we added different types of apps, let's see how to process and distribute them to the organization. So in the example, we will process and distribute a Windows classes app in the organization using Intune. So we need to download the executable file for the Power BI desktop. Next, let's navigate to GitHub to download the Microsoft Win32 Content Rep tool. So this tool will enable you to create a Win32 app in the Intune console. Scroll down the page to download the tool. So this tool converts application installation files into the Intune package format. The tool also detects some of the attributes required by Intune to determine the application installation state. Select Clone or Download. Next, select Download zip. Next, click or tap the ellipsis and then open the folder containing the downloaded tool. So we need to extract them. Okay, now let's run the Win32 Content Grep tool. On the screen that opens, you will enter commands to provide the parameters needed to convert the file. First, specify the source folder and run the command. Next, specify the setup file. In this case, we will specify the executable file for the Power BI desktop application we downloaded earlier. Next, specify the output folder. Next, you can choose to specify a catalog folder. In the example, we'll choose not to specify a folder. So, the tool has processed the specified folder. Here you can see the into package file that we created. Now let's return to the Endpoint Manager Admin Center to add a Win32 app to Into. So scroll down and select the app type. Now we'll walk through the steps of adding the app. First, we will specify the application package file. We'll fill out the app information. So categorize this app under productivity. So you can include a logo to help the app stand out. Next, let's configure the program settings for the app. Here you can specify the commands to install and uninstall the app. And you can configure the install behavior as we previously saw with live business applications. And you can also specify the device resource behavior to minimize any potential impact on users after the application is installed. So let's select the drop-down arrow to view the device restart options. And in this case, we'll leave the behavior set to app install may force a device restart. Next, let's specify the device requirements. We need to provide the requirements that devices must meet before the app is installed, including the operating system architecture. And we will select the checkbox to 64-bit. And next, select the minimum operating system required to install the app. So I will select the Windows 10 1709. And optionally, add a free disk space needed on the system drive to install the app, and we will require 500 megabytes. And you can add custom requirement rules if needed. Select the drop-down arrow to specify the requirement type, and in this case, we won't add any custom requirements. Next, let's configure the rules used to detect and presence of the app. Select the drop-down arrow to choose the rules format. And you can choose to manually configure the detection rules or use a custom script to detect the presence of the app. And we will select manually configure detection rules. Now let's add the detection rules. Select the drop-down arrow to choose the rule type. And you can choose from 3 different types of rules: MSI, file, and registry. In this instance, we will select file to create a rule that checks if a file exists in a specific folder. Next, provide the folder path and file name. And we will select file or folder existed. If the file is detected, then the application is considered to have already been installed. And in that case, the Intune management policy will not attempt to install the application again. Now select OK to add the rule. The next step is to specify any software dependencies for the app. App dependencies are applications that must be installed before your app can be installed. In this case, we won't specify any dependencies. Let's make this a required app for an assigned group of users. Search for the group and select it. Next, let's review and create the app. The application has been configured and is now available in your organization. Well, you just learned how to add and assign different types of applications, create app protection policies, and distribute apps to your organizations. So, thanks for your watching, and we will meet again in the next video.